Hello all. Today, Scorched Earth Toys at anymoon.com is journeying back to the year 2010. Frontier has been off the air for about a year, but the Frontier movies are filling the void. The first movie ends with Alto in brand new tornado parts fending off a massive Vajra invasion, and the second movie gives Michael a set of his own. Bandai was ready with the merch, but they went about things a little funky, so let me explain. The tornado parts have two configurations. There's the atmospheric or the exo-atmospheric. The original Tornado VF-25F gift set and the Tamashii web exclusive Tornado accessory only provides the atmospheric configuration. To convert to space configuration, you had to purchase a separate powered weapon set. As Wings of Goodbye hit theaters, Bandai gave us a Michael Custom 25G that included everything you need for either configuration. Now, you can't go back in time and buy these things, but if you're still in the present and shopping for toys from any other license, do click that link in the comments below to support this channel and browse a huge selection at Big Bad Toy Store. The atmospheric tornado parts included with the 25F gift set or the standalone accessory include the tornado parts in a couple plastic trays. The first tray includes the leg and arm armors, as well as the display stand base, arm, and part of the fighter mode adapter. The second tray has the wing and back parts. A baggie includes a brace for supporting Gearwalk mode, a Batroid mode display stand adapter, an adapter that works for the front of fighter and Gearwalk modes, and a support for the rear of Gearwalk mode when using the display stand. You would also find instructions in the box. With the gift set, you would then also receive a version 1 VF-25F toy with its standalone accessories. If you purchased the powered weapons accessory, you would then get 4 caps for the intakes on the wing-mounted engines, 2 missile pylons, 4 reaction missiles, 2 reaction missile mounts for the tornado parts, 2 double reaction missile mounts for armored parts, which is a totally separate item, and another set of instructions. If you purchased Michael's VF-25G gift set, you would get the tornado parts with the powered weapons, except the reaction missiles and the associated mounting hardware. For some reason, they did cheap out on Michael's display stand, omitting the paint apps. Instead of giving you a tray for the space parts, those are tossed in a bag. Of course, you also get Michael's big sniper rifle and mounting equipment for it, along with all the normal accessories for a V1 VF-25 toy. The instruction booklet has been expanded to cover the whole host of additional parts. I am going to demonstrate the installation of these parts on a Batroid mode toy. You're going to start by taking this fin. Doesn't matter what mode you're in, you're going to take that fin and you're going to shove it inside the leg cavity like so. And then you're going to grab your exterior leg armor, which has a U-shaped peg that's going to go in that slot there, and another peg on the bottom that's going to attach. Just line them up, press firmly into position, and then grab the back of the leg armor, and you should probably be getting a sense that things are not going to turn out well already. But we're going to take this armor here and just plug that right into the back. There's a peg on top that helps you line it up, and it should be pretty secure. Now, I do have one of the wing armors on already, just that's where we're going. But you can see the toy cannot support the weight of one of the wing armors, let alone both of them. But it does come with this piece here that goes along the spine. And this piece features a tripod extension. So you can take this, there are pegs along the back that go into holes. They line up with those holes right there. And so you just need to line everything up and press firmly into place. And I'm a little too high up here. There we go. So I just press that into position. And now there is a tripod that comes down between the legs. And while it won't be long enough to keep the toy standing up totally, it will stop the toy from falling over completely like it was before. Hopefully So the toy can't stand in Batroid mode, so grab your display stand, which has no pivots or anything. All it does is elevate the toy. Here is the Batroid mode display stand adapter. Here is my Batroid mode toy. I can just plug this in, oops, the other way here, like so. It's got two pegs that are coming up. They fit nicely into place. And then this can just sit on there. And now I don't have to worry about the toy falling over constantly, which is clearly a big plus. On the awkward side though, as you pose the toy, you do get this boom that now comes right down the back of the display stand. So that's a little funky, but otherwise this is the way to go. Now you might have noticed already that the weight of this part on the wings causes another unique problem, and that it's so heavy it causes the wing to fall forward and go in a direction it's not even really intended to go. So that's a long-term durability issue for sure. So do not like that at all in Batroid mode. But let's go ahead and grab our other part and at least even out the weight distribution here. So here is a big slot, and this is just going to slide right on here and go up, and then as you get to the top, you're gonna pivot things down a little bit and then over, which you can see I got that on at the expense of the back part. Okay, we are looking good. And now we have this arm armor to install. This is a really laughably poor installation, which you would think would be the simplest part. You have to tab this little triangle behind the arm and then grab the front of the arm with this clip, which I think really just proves to you that there was no forethought at all on how this should work when they made the underlying version 1 VF-25 toy. Now, in Batroid mode, it's not the worst, right? It's on there all right. But now imagine you had this toy in fighter mode where these pieces are supposed to line up perfectly. How would you get a triangle inside there? You can't. So what you end up having to do in fighter mode is angle that out and then click it into position. So yeah, that's stupid. All right, but what if you're never going to handle the toy? You just want something you could put on display, spend a little bit of time and get it into a decent looking pose and then leave it alone forever. Is it okay for that? Well, this is, I don't think, an awful job here. I think I've got it into position in Batroid mode. I can move it around. I do have the wings furthest swept back as you can get them. Some of the line art makes it look like they aren't supposed to sweep back as much as they do in a normal Batroid position. But there you go. So you can see everything in position. I've got those fins tucked up against the side of the armors now, and everything is working out. So let's talk about your feature set now. You do have the ability to pivot the cannons, but as you can see, if I go up, I can knock the wings there. But so these go up and down, and they have another little feature I'll show you in just a second. Moving to the back, we also get the ability to pivot these parts right here, and we have ball jointed nozzles on these parts as well. So that's your feature set. No missile bays to speak of when you're dealing with just the atmospheric tornado parts. So let's go ahead and add on the space parts as well. So you were probably looking at this toy and thinking, hey, there's just not enough weight hanging off those back hinges, those two tiny hinges right here. We need to put more weight on there, and Bandai's got you covered with the space parts. So the space parts, these missile pylons, do actually have opening doors, and they kind of extend at the hinge. They were hidden hinges, so it's not bad. And then inside you found a red pineapple that is supposed to be missiles, so that's all right. The doors are a little funky, but everything works and it comes together nice and tight. And then we can go ahead, there's a peg right here. We can put that peg into this slot on there, and it will lock nice and firmly into position. Now we also got little caps for these nozzles here, these boosters. They do have slightly different pegs for attaching. So if it doesn't feel like it goes in right away, like that one just did, just switch and they should just pop right into place like so. Now there's nothing that goes on with those. They just cover that front intake. The final step of achieving space mode is to flap open these parts here on the guns. Now I'm not really sure what they are or why in space you would want to have them open, but you just have a little fingernail spot. You can pull it open and it'll open up like so. And then there you go. Now you are in full space mode with your tornado parts. So here we have Michael with just the atmospheric version of the parts, and now I have Alto with the space version of the parts. Again, on the display stand, again, not trying to touch anything, and you can definitely display the toys in this manner. Now I do worry, as I've pointed out a couple times, a lot of weight on two little hinges on the back of this toy. So I would be afraid that you would check on your display case a year later and these would be cracked, especially given the quality of these version 1 VF-25 toys. Lots of complaints with cracking, especially with the heavier armored parts. I feel like this is going to get you in the exact same boat. So you can definitely do Batroid mode tornado parts. It's very unsatisfying to handle, and it is a little scary from a durability standpoint. So let's move on to Gearwalk mode. We're going into Gearwalk mode, and I did want to show you that my concerns are well founded. There is a hairline crack right here on the hinge, so just too much stress in this area with the weight of those parts in one of these modes. I've had it in all of them a few times now. Also, just as big, if not bigger concern over here. Now this is specific to Batroid mode. The whole weight of the toy, the whole back, is attached via these hinges right here. So when you put something this massive onto the wings of the toy, it creates too much weight for these hinges to handle, and you get little cracks. So I definitely do not recommend these parts in Batroid mode. If you're familiar with version 1 VF-25 toys, you know that they don't really do Gearwalk mode. Let's just say, well, they are fairly awful at Gearwalk mode. So it would look something like this. You're gonna have your hips kind of down, and there's no way it would ever support all of that weight on the back of the toy. So what we get is a little brace, and this brace looks like this, and we just peg it in on either side of the wings here. So we get that in there, bring our other wing over, peg that in, and it's pretty solid once it's in there. Now you can see these hinges can't fold down on each other, which is great. And then as we bring the legs back, they will actually, the holes in the back of the leg armors will now tab into these pegs that come off the brace. Now you might be thinking, but wait, doesn't that completely eliminate your articulation of the legs? And the answer to that is largely a yes. And you can see I've already had a ball joint pop out of me on me. Boy, this is not fun. So anyways, I'll get this pegged in, but you can kind of decide for yourself if this is a good system. If I were looking for something positive to say about this toy with the full space configuration on in Gearwalk mode, is that at least it functions somewhat without the display stand, unlike Batroid mode that we saw before. And also, the fact that these braces are connected to the legs, as you just saw, means I'm a lot less concerned about leaving the toy in this stance for hours on end. That said, it's not attractive by any means, nor is it dynamic, nor is it fun to play with like this. So I would not leave it in gear walk mode for hours on end anyway. Now in gear walk mode, you start to be able to pivot the guns, which is cool. Again, you're probably not going to do much dynamic stuff, but at least you can pretend, get a pose going, kind of similar to what I said about Batroid, and leave it there and forget it. Let's take a look at it without the space parts. You can see the missile pylons here really infringing on the territory of the arms and making things a little bit awkward. So maybe just an atmospheric version would be a little better off. All right, so I've taken off the space version parts and got the toy hanging out now in atmospheric configuration. The arms are a little bit more comfortable looking. They still do kind of butt up against this part of the tornado parts, but not bad. You're not gonna get a nice angle to your gear walk mode toy, which is unfortunate, but there's a lot of unfortunate things going on here in this mode and otherwise. Now, a good thing to do at this point would be like, this toy is not comfortable to handle in this mode. Maybe I should put it on the display stand. And to do that, you do open up this little part right here, and then that's where the front of the display stand clasps on, which is nice. So you get a little bit of a grip there. And then you do get on the back, this brace that we created, or added, I should say. The prongs go up into that to support the entire back. So you can see where this is falling down, although this is because these pegs came undone. But this whole spine could have a little bit of an angle to it normally. And on the display stand, it presses that up so you get a nice flat line nose to back. Now, another thing to point out is the head lasers do tuck in underneath this back armor piece. So this wouldn't be perfect transformation. You are gonna have to pop off, at the very least, that back armor piece. But since we're dealing with braces anyways, it's probably not much of a concern. The joints on my VF-25G toy are looser than my VF-25F Alto toy. And again, using the display stand basically becomes a prerequisite. This toy won't really function. The hips are too loose, the ankles are too loose, it will flop right over. So I have to put it on the display stand. But then as you can see, the angle that the toy sits on the display stand is humorously awkward. There should be swooping legs forward, not kind of back like this. I mean, yeah, you can make it look more natural. You can pivot these engine parts, but it just doesn't look like it's supposed to. So once again, I am pretty frustrated with these parts, and I'm frustrated with the underlying toy, don't get me wrong, but these parts are just not doing it any favors. All right, let's continue on to fighter mode. And here we are in fighter mode, which is the first mode that doesn't entirely suck, I am happy to say. The tornado parts do have some quirks to them, not the best product out there still, but if you're gonna have these, if you really want tornado parts, this is definitely the mode to go with. The big issue is that the wings slant upwards, and that's not really how it's supposed to work. And in doing that, it kind of screws up the lines where the wing meets the body. But as far as the other modes go, that is easily the least egregious sin. Now you can have the gun on there. It's still gonna be able to roll on those landing gear. This fin is not gonna drag on the ground. And that might be because they canted that wing upward like they did. But otherwise, it holds together extremely well. You can whoosh it around. So high marks there. Now a quirk of the V1 VF-25 toys is that Michael cannot sit on his gun in fighter mode. So that's not gonna happen unless you use the display stand, and we'll check that out in just a moment. Now, there is a build quality issue I have with my Michael toy. Let's see if we can get that on there. When I put the wing in there, there's something wrong on the inside that actually pushes the two halves of that part apart, which is really unfortunate. Okay, let's try out the space parts. All right, so I've got the missile pylons on now. Toy looks pretty darn good, actually, which is saying something. I think the tornado parts actually conceal a lot of the weaknesses of the underlying V1 VF-25. And I just wanted to show you, again, no clearance issue. Those missile pylons well off the ground. The powered weapon set does come with the reaction missiles. You don't get those with Michael's VF-25G. The sort of insulting thing about these version 1 Tornado parts is that Michael's 25G came out 4 months before the YF-29, the DX-YF-29 toy. The DX-YF-29 toy is a completely remade VF-25 essentially with integrated Tornado parts, and it is 1,000 times better toy than a version 1 VF-25 with the Tornado parts. So if you're at all interested in the Frontier movies, go with the DX-YF-29 toys well before you ever consider a version 1 toy with the Tornado parts. They just aren't that good. Now obviously Altos preceded the Michael VF-25G, but still it's like within a year of the renewal VF-25 toys. So these were just kind of cashing in on the mold moments. They're not good unless you are an absolute die-hard completist. I think it's pretty easy to say everyone should just steer well away from these toys. In fighter mode, they're kind of serviceable, but really just a complete disaster. Check out the full article on anymoon.com, subscribe, and thanks for watching, guys.